Welcome back, pet parent. I'm so excited for today's guest. I've actually been wanting to have her on for quite some time, and it wasn't until we bumped heads at Super Zoo last year that we were like, oh my gosh, yes, we actually really need to we really need to make this happen. So I have been using 4Legger shampoo for years. I actually originally found this brand because of Dr. Melissa Shelton, who is the formulator for Animalio essential oils, which I absolutely love and adore her essential oils. And she recommends Four Legger. So that's where I found it. And I have been using it ever since. I love how clean this product is. If you've been following me on social media for any length of time, every time I restock, I do a post about it because I just love it that much. Fortunately, but unfortunately, it lasts like a bottle lasts so stinking long that I don't get to post about it that often. But Melissa, thank you so much for being here and for creating Four Legger. How are you today?
I'm great, and I'm so excited to be here with you too.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a little bit about you recently did an email series. So guys, I will like if you are not on Melissa's email list, I will make sure it's going to be in the show notes. Just double check down there and go to her website, get on her email list because she recently put out this, I want to say it was a 5-part email series, and she's continuing to put out more content in her email series, which is amazing, educating on what we actually want to look for in shampoos, conditioners, and honestly, the ingredients that she's talking about, we can extrapolate to other products as well, like anything in the grooming space, really. So, but before we get to all of that, I would just love to hear like a little bit of background about you and why you created Four Legger.
Well, okay, that was a journey. I had a little dog named Henry Clay, and that's him right there.
Oh,
The little white toy poodle. And he was, I got him, as a puppy, and I had him for several years. He was with me through some really, really difficult times in my life with loss and that. So when he was 8 years old, he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was in his urinary tract, which was a little bit of an unusual place for cancer, but that was right about the time when a lot of the holistic veterinarians in particular started noticing a spike in cancer in dogs. Of course, back then I didn't know anything about any of this. I was a practicing occupational therapist. I worked with patients in the healthcare system with neurological conditions and orthopedic conditions and all that. I just didn't know anything about dog wellness and dog health at that point. So when he was diagnosed, that was kind of a shocker because I did everything the vet told me to do and thought I was doing all of the good things for him. So he went through a couple of surgeries over a couple of year period, and fortunately his cancer stayed in the primary spot, so it didn't move. But then in the third year, I started noticing his equilibrium was off. He started having a facial droop and all the things I was very accustomed to seeing in my human patients, and I knew that it had metastasized. The vet confirmed, and it had gone to his brainstem, and actually by that point he was already aspirating and was having difficulty, and so the vet told me he probably only has about 4 to 5 weeks of quality life left to give. But that dog had another thought about that. He was my little heart dog. I love that I think Dr. Becker was the first I ever heard talk about a heart dog, and I love that. He actually lived for 13 months past his 4 to 5 weeks prognosis. And I know in my heart, as much as I know anything, that dog willed himself to live because he knew that I had cancer before I knew I had cancer. And he actually died on the day I was diagnosed. And so, that was a bad day.
yeah. Oh my goodness.
And it just immediately went. I had a very aggressive form of breast cancer, and my treatment had to start immediately. And within just a short time, my own cell counts had just gone to the basement from the chemo. And my doctor told me it was January. It was like Christmas. I spent Christmas Day in the chemo suite in the oncology unit. That's not a way to spend a holiday. But anyway, when my cell counts went so low, they actually medically were termed as infection fatal, meaning, if you catch anything, you're not going to survive. He knew I had other dogs at home and that they were out in the yard and going for walks and, people were petting them. And he said, you need to start bathing your dogs more because it's imperative that you minimize your exposure to germs and bacteria in order to survive this. And they're coming back in with stuff on them, germs and whatever on them. So, college educated graduate, I figured I could choose a good, safe, healthy shampoo. And what I learned was that I was really good at being marketed to. I went for the bright, colorful bottle. I went for, the fancy language and all of that. And within just a couple of weeks, my other dogs started itching and scratching more than they ever had. And I'm like, well, by now I'm trying to clean up my own act, going more natural ingredients and organic ingredients. And I thought, well, what in the world are we doing to the dogs? And so when we started looking at the ingredients, it was an eye opener. What is found in very common, very popular shampoo lines that passes as a safe ingredient, and it's just not. And so that led to a 17-month long deep dive into the rabbit hole of ingredients. And, my business partner is a scientist, which is, awesome for us. She understands the literature and how to interpret, research and that sort of stuff. So anyway, we just, my treatment lasted 22 months. It was long, it was complicated, it stopped, it started, it was just a long process. And it took us almost that long to come up with our first formulation. We were so determined we were not going to use any synthetic ingredients, any artificial ingredients. And so that kind of meant right from day one that we were going to have to go through the National Organic Program in order to distinguish 4Legger from virtually every other brand, with a few rare exceptions, as being any different. And so we started that process, and it was great. The month that I finished my last chemo infusion was the same month that our first product was ready for launch. And so it was just such a great way to close, a bad chapter and start forward with something else. And we threw it up on the internet, and honestly, that product sold in less than 6 weeks in all 50 states and in 6 countries. And I thought, okay, I'm not the only person out there that owns animals, owns pets, and wants them to have the opportunity to have a bath that's not going to make them sick in the long run. And so, that's kind of where it started and where we've gone. And it was just so important for us to, thank you for mentioning the blog earlier, that we wanted to be an educational resource for people to have kind of a go-to place to look up pretty much anything. You can put in our search bar on our website, and chances are we've written something about it. And it's all based on academic research, veterinary science, human health science, PubMed, the legitimate research places, not Dr. Google or, others that need not be named. So that's kind of probably a longer version of the story than you wanted, but that's the whole backstory behind 4Legger.
Wow. I mean, first of all, you must have told this story so many times that you're not crying, because I was tearing up when you were talking about, losing your heart dog and being diagnosed with cancer all in the same day. That just has to be like more than earth shattering.
Yeah, it was. I mean, he passed in the morning about 10:30 that morning. It was Friday, November 22nd. It was the Friday before Thanksgiving, and I got the phone call that afternoon, and about mine, and it's like, okay, it's going to be really hard to be thankful at Thanksgiving this year, but honestly, it wasn't. I'm a person of faith, and I just leaned into that very heavily, and it helped me get through the entire situation. But um, you know, as a result, we honor Henry Clay's birthday now because it was the Friday of Thanksgiving. We have a Thankful Friday sale. We don't have a Black Friday sale. That sounds so dark and depressing to me, but it's like, why does anybody call it that? So we have a Thankful Friday sale, and it's just to honor Henry Clay's life and to, pull his legacy forward again into another year, and just to be very grateful for his life and what he's done to help clean up the industry.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's just such a powerful story. And we got first, I mean, thank goodness you survived. You made it through. You are here with us today, and you have and Henry Clay, the legacy now of 4Legger, which again is one of the most incredible products I've found, like across the board for anything we're buying for our pets. I think that's saying something because there are so many products out there. We really do have like there's a pretty high saturation of products in the pet market, but across the board, like there are a handful of companies out there making really, really good products, and for me, 4Legger is one of them. So I do want to talk about like I think most people, even when we start getting the food right, even when we start cleaning up the supplements, there are still like kind of these ancillary things that we may not often think about. And for me as a pet health coach, like it's my job to get my clients to think about these things, but on their own, they're like, oh, I would have never thought about that. And shampoo is one of those things that it's just like, you just go buy a shampoo. I mean,
Right.
people do it too. Like, cleaning up my own shampoo, cleaning up
Right.
my own products came far later than
Mm-hmm.
cleaning up my pet's products. And I'm right there with you. I have been even fairly recently, like I can fall into the marketing traps. One of the things that I've recently started talking about because it was made aware to me was that even in the healthy, whether we're talking about the healthy pet space or like the healthy human space, we still have this mindset of almost like we've been so trained and ingrained into like the pharmacological model where there's a pill for every ill. We are continuing that even with healthy products, even with products that are actually really, really good for us. We may not need them. They're just shiny objects, right? That it's like, oh, well, it's healthy, so I must need it. You may not need
Right.
it. And so, I mean, I have this like list of supplements that I was taking, and they were all food based, really healthy, clean supplements. But one of my friends was like, but do you really need all of them? And I'm like, so I get it. Like I'm still susceptible to marketing. We have to be really, really careful with what we're doing. And the companies that have not so great products tend to be the ones that have these huge marketing budgets that are catching our attention, whether that is on TV and magazines or online with their advertising, or even just in the store with, as you said, bright, shiny packaging. Like that draws us in. We talk about that a lot with food, with the marketing on the bags of kibble is 100% for people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your animals are not in there buying their own food. These pretty pictures of a chicken breast and blueberries that are probably less than 1% of what's in the bag. That is what gets you to buy that food when it's a total lie.
It is. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it, but in, full disclosure, because I didn't know better, Henry Clay grew up on Beneful. I mean, there's
Okay.
not a worse, well, there might be a worse one, but that one's towards the bottom. And, I was so proud of that at the time because, it cost more and, I felt like I was really going above and beyond. And in retrospect, I was like, no, it's a wonder he didn't get sick a lot sooner than he did.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, my cats and dogs, they were all on kibble for a long time. And I say this all the time, just like you, I did everything my vet told me to do, and I thought I was being the best pet parent I could be by doing that. I even had my cats were on like 4 different prescription kibbles
Mm-hmm.
because that's what my vet said, and I thought it was the right thing to do. Thank goodness I know it's not the right thing to do now, but let's get back to shampoo.
Yeah.
So, safe, non toxic shampoo. I actually, funnily enough, earlier this year did a little series on marketing claims, greenwashing. So, greenwashing is super, super prevalent throughout the pet industry, throughout the human health industry as well. But I think it's worse in the pet industry. So, let's just start with natural because I feel like that is like the buzzword that people are like, it's natural. So talk to me a little bit more about natural.
Yeah, well, greenwashing is, I'll define what I think that is. That's taking something that is not natural and making it look natural, either by choosing a literal green color or blue color or, something that seems natural that you would see in the environment. But there's not anything green about it when you start to look at it. So the kicker about the terms natural and organic, nobody regulates the use of those words, not even the National Organic Program, which you would think if anybody's going to regulate it, they would. And so that is, in my estimation, the wide open door that has allowed all of these other manufacturers to use the same words that I use because they're true on their products to describe what is essentially a detergent shampoo or something that's full of carcinogens and endocrine disruptors and all of these health issues that have come up in our animals since really kind of since the 90s is when that trend first started to appear. And I think it's because, I'm old enough, you're not old enough. I'm old enough to remember when people had dogs, they were outside dogs, right? I mean, no, if you lived in a neighborhood, nobody had fences. The fences were, unheard of. Who had a fence? You didn't want to put that ugly thing in your yard. And so if the Joneses down the street got a dog, well, it was everybody's dog, and it would just come down the line of houses and all. But then little dogs got popular in the 80s, in the late 80s, kind of mid to late 80s, and people wanted to bring them in because they were cute and they needed our help and they needed us to protect them and all this. But they didn't want them to bring in their fleas and their, the ticks and all of the pests that like to ride along on them and bacteria and all of that. And so the pharmaceutical companies that had been producing agricultural grade pesticides and herbicides and all of these things that they were just broad spraying on crops out on farms and ranches. There's an opportunity here. Manipulate this to make it apply to a dog in a veterinary setting, and nobody will know that it's just the same toxic stuff that we're spraying all over crops. And pretty much it worked. And that's when you saw by the 90s, by the late 90s, I think it was, used to be dogs died from two things, right? They either died from old age or they got hit by a car. And that's it. Now we're treating them for liver disease, for kidney disease, for heart disease, for neurological issues, for endocrine issues, for gut health. I mean, we're treating them for all of the same things that humans are treated for because we've humanized them and we've allowed the industry to bring in the products that shouldn't be used on humans either and apply that to dogs who have absolutely no choice in the matter about what you're giving them or feeding them or putting on them. They're just subject to all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, even in pet food we were talking about earlier, natural, they can still have synthetic vitamins and minerals and trace nutrients and still call that natural because like you said, there's just no regulation
Right.
to it. Um, and shampoos specifically, since that's what we're talking about today, they can claim to be natural and still claim harsh chemicals, synthetic preservatives, and artificial fragrances, which are all detrimental. Can we start with some of the preservatives that, up to you? Do you want to talk about the nasty ones that are in other products? Do you want to talk about the ones that you use that are certified organic? Whichever one you want to talk about first.
We either, I mean, because there's a world of difference. I mean, what we found when we were doing our research, particularly with preservatives, was that the most common preservative used in dog shampoo and in many human shampoos is referred to chemically as DMDM hydantin or DMDH hydantin. And nobody knows what that is. It's just a chemical, and you assume since it's in a product that it's safe. But if you dig down and find out what that actually is, it is slow releasing formaldehyde. It bioaccumulates in the body. It never gets flushed out. And if as that builds up over time, it settles in the organs, in the kidney and the liver, and in the skin. And it can be the tripping point for, the person that has a dog like me, that's 8 years old, healthy one day, and then all of a sudden my dog has cancer. And, the takeaway from that is there is no all of a sudden when it comes to our dogs. It's a matter of what that dog has been exposed to for their entire life, that at some point may be a tripping point to cause disease in their body. And it feels like this just happened. What did I do wrong? And it's not that. It just highlights the fact that we have to be so cognizant and so aware all along of what we're allowing our dogs to interact with, either environmentally or what they're eating or what you're bathing them with, or, the vaccine protocols, all of that stuff. It has to come into consideration, and none of it can be done in isolation, really. Dogs are not little robots. You can't, he's got a broken leg, we'll fix the leg. Well, yeah, his leg is broken, but his whole body's broken while his leg is broken. It's not just an isolated thing. So one of our emphasis, this whole food thing has come up over the last couple of years, particularly, and people getting much more aware of food and how it impacts the dog's health. So in the last year, we've been trying to tie the whole big picture together with that. It's like you can spend all the money you want to get your dog's gut cleaned up and to give them the most expensive, the most healthy, the most raw, species appropriate diet that you can find. But if you're still neglecting what you're allowing them to be exposed to externally, then you haven't cleaned up your whole dog, and you're actually minimizing the benefits that the healthy food could have, because the immune system is still being drawn in two different directions. It's trying to clean up the gut still. Now it's trying to clean up the skin, trying to clean up, overall health. And then you throw this whole issue with vaccines in there, and the protocols that are for that. And I've said forever that if you don't get their food right, their vaccine protocol right, and their external grooming products and other external products that they may come into, if you don't get all three of those right, you're only partially allowing your dog to have the best healthy life they can have.
Absolutely. So some of the other preservatives that are really nasty, I'm going to try. I'm going to try really hard to say this word, and everybody out there is going to laugh, but that's okay. Isothiazolinones.
I'm looking it up do you know our pet shampoo ingredient database?
Yes, on your website.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
We actually don't have that one in there.
So it was in the series, the 5-part series that you sent out through your email list, and apparently whatever the heck that word is known to cause allergies, skin irritation, and neurologic issues. Then there's sodium benzoate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sodium benzoate that's in a lot of food too.
Nice.
That one's, if you look, and feel free to put the link to our ingredient database in here. We've tried to break it down into the three things that pet parents really need to know, which is the ingredient that I'm interested in learning about a natural ingredient or is it artificial? How safe is it? And then if it's an ingredient that even could be certified organic, because these days everybody says their stuff is organic. And so then the extra bit on top of that safety question that we're going to give you is from the literature that is actual academic, medical, veterinary types of research that's done. If there's any health conditions that have ever been associated with that ingredient in either dogs or people, we're going to tell you what it is. Not just that there is a concern for health, but sodium benzoate, for example, it does have links to allergies, and it can also be an endocrine disruptor. It is effective preservative against mold and bacteria, but what's the trade-off, for that? Yeah. If you're disrupting your endocrine system or potentially disrupting that in the first place, which is, that's hormones. That's important stuff.
It really is. And parabens was also on the list, which I think, women, we hear that a lot, to avoid sulfates and parabens. Those are like the two big ones that we hear of, but there's so many more. There's so many more.
And parabens also are not friendly to the environment. They don't break down. And so they're not environmentally friendly either, in addition to being a terrible ingredient to it be exposing yourself from a health perspective.
Yeah. So what are the preservatives that you use in your organic product?
We don't use a preservative. We use rosemary extract, which is more of an antioxidant than it is a true preservative. It will help to prevent, the free radicals or anything that might be over time. As shampoo sits in a bottle, it's exposed to light and air and heat and cold and all of the things that contribute to breaking down natural products. And so it helps to prevent that from happening while it's still in the bottle. So important to note, with organic shampoo, truly organic shampoo, you don't want to keep it sitting in your windowsill on your kitchen window ledge so that it's being hit by sun and heat and that you want to keep it in a cool, dry place to help preserve the life of it. Yep, we live and die by rosemary, and there's a lot of, you see it every now and then. We always know when something's going around the internet. Oh, rosemary is causing dogs with seizures to have seizures and this and not really. I have a dog, let's see, which she's in the...
One of them?
Yeah, catty corner to Henry Clay, this little black one.
That one, got it, yeah.
She was diagnosed with a neurological condition that required oversight by a canine neurologist for almost 6 years. Like frequent. That became her primary doctor. She was on medication for seizures. She had inflammatory brain disease. And by the time it was caught, the inflammation was in every lobe of her brain. And you could see it, symptomatically. She staggered around like a drunk sailor, and she couldn't sit and she couldn't stand, and she, her vision was off. Her depth perception was off. She was over exaggerating movements because she couldn't tell, exactly that the rug, the difference between the rug and the floor wasn't something that she had to like leap over. It was just a little. And I mean, it was awful. That dog went through the most harsh treatment that I've heard of a dog going through, and she survived it. I mean, Dr. Ruhlman is my miracle worker. She got that dog into remission after having initially only given her a 5% chance of surviving either the treatment or the disease. And she got into remission and stayed there for a little over 5 years before she ultimately passed away. And, this is a canine neurologist. They're even more rare than canine oncologists in the country. And, she had no... I asked her specifically about it. We got to be really good friends over the years, and we still get together every year and visit. And I said, Debbie, I see this stuff all the time. People are emailing, you shouldn't put rosemary extract in your product. It causes seizures. And she said there's no substance to that as a standalone kind of an event. Seizures are triggered by any of 1,000 different things. And in virtually every single case of it, it's a combination of different events happening all at the same time, that including your dog's own current metabolic status just at that moment, that can result in a seizure. And it's not accurate, and it's not really responsible to say definitively this caused a seizure or that caused a seizure. It's impossible to know.
Mm-hmm.
So she had no issues at all with us using, and in fact, she uses our little 2-ounce bottles and puts them in every one of her patient bags that goes out the door. You're going to be bathing your dog. This is what you use.
I love it.
So
I
yeah,
love
it's,
it.
for me, that's like the highest credibility that there
Yeah.
is, that it's a safe preservative antioxidant, and that it's not on its own. Also, there's so little of it in the bottle when you compare it to the entire concentration of everything else that's in the bottle. All of the other ingredients is such a small percentage of it that even in isolation, she says there's no possibility that this by itself could trigger
Yeah.
a seizure. But I mean, I get it. People aren't going to risk, you know, you have a dog with seizures, you're wise to give it a second thought. And I encourage you to give it a second thought. But don't, if you're going to choose something else, make sure you're looking at those ingredients too and seeing what they may be doing.
Yeah, that is one of the things that I find so interesting about our culture right now is everybody is so quick to look at something natural and complain about it and say, but it does this, oh, but it does that, and or it's not sustainable, or whatever. Like there's so much criticism for so many natural products on the market when those same people have no criticism for the food dyes that they're ingesting every day or anything else that we're throwing in our body, eating McDonald's for dinner. Like that's not even food, people, in my
Exactly.
opinion.
Mine too.
And it bothers me because not because you know just like you said, yes, you should be critical of everything you're looking at, but why are we so hyper fixated on on natural products right now? I think I truly believe it's a lot of everybody says it's the minority that always has the loudest voices, and I think that that is true, and I think there's so much still marketing and so much money that these big pharmaceutical agrochemical companies have that there's a lot of paid opposition, in my
Right.
opinion, is
Right.
kind of what it comes down to, and then people just get kind of brainwashed on that train of thought, because it's hard. It's hard to change your mind. It's hard for your ego to say I was wrong about something.
Yep. It is. And I think kind of a very practical position that might be causing some of that pushback against naturalists. It is more expensive. If you go to the grocery to buy organic vegetables for yourself, it's more expensive. However, you can't look at that expense without also considering the expense of disease and treatment. So, you're going to be spending your money. Do you want to spend it towards prevention, or do you want to spend it towards treatment? And I can assure you that treatment is always much more expensive than prevention.
Yeah. Well, and just the cost of, I mean, you can't put a cost on your health, in
Right.
my opinion. Like so many people over the years, so many, stoics and every walk of life, it comes down to if you don't have your health, you have nothing. And like I just don't think you can put a price on it, but I understand that it can be. It's hard. People are struggling right now, and it's hard. People are always struggling, but sometimes worse than others.
It can be, but when talking about dogs in particular, when we know that the statistics are that 50% of all dogs are going to be diagnosed with cancer, that's pretty high odds, that your dog is one in two, maybe one in three, depending on the type of cancer. And, most skin cancers or most canine cancers show up on the skin. And so it makes your choice, of a grooming product even more important, that you're supporting the skin and the very important work that skin does. We tend to think of it as it's just the barrier. It's where the acid mantle is that protects the immune system. But I pulled up a list recently of functions of the skin. And I was like, man, you don't even think about what all it does. It's the literal um, case, for lack of a better word, that keeps the whole body together, that keeps the joints together, that keeps them moving in the motions that they're intended to move. And the elasticity of the skin allows stretch, for being able to jump or whatever they're doing. It helps to control temperature regulation in the body. And it's a storage site. It's a reservoir for electrolytes and water and proteins and carbohydrates and all kinds of other minerals. It's antimicrobial, because of the skin biome and all of the bacterial and viral and fungal bacteria that are on that helps to make up the biome. That's what keeps it healthy. That's what helps to keep the immune system operational and fully functional for the whole body, because that is the literal barrier and protection to the immune system is the skin. One thing that I did, vitamin D's a lot in the news with dog food more than that. But one thing that I learned about what the skin does is it will convert inactive vitamin D that naturally occurring on the skin to active vitamin D. And it takes sunlight to do that. And so I don't know, I mean, some of this stuff was just like revelation to me, because here lately, I keep seeing different ones that I follow talking about, get your feet on the grass, get your feet on the dirt, and I'm like, I don't like to do that. I'm not a barefoot person. But then I see something like that and I'm like, okay, well, sunlight is important, soil is important, grass is important in order to make sure that your body has all of the nutrients and the essentials that it needs to stay healthy. So sorry, I don't know where I went down that rabbit
No,
trail,
you're
but
fine. Actually, there is one other thing about the skin that I do want to talk about, but I want to save it for a little bit later, so don't let me forget about that.
okay.
We mentioned sulfates just a little bit earlier, or I did. I brought them up because that is like one thing that I think women have. We have been, I assume at some point along the way, there was a push to remove parabens and sulfates from our shampoos and conditioners. And so that's like big marketing now is free of parabens, free of sulfates. So we understand that, but there still are a lot of sulfates used in a lot of shampoos, both human and for pets, and they are, my understanding is it that that's what makes it like thick and foamy, but that's not necessary because it
No,
causes a lot more problems.
right. And that's what a lot of ingredients are. Sulfates are particularly bad for that. They're for the human. The dog could care less what the consistency of the shampoo is or if it's creamy or what. They don't care. That's all for the human to appeal to their sense. Same as lather. If you don't have a lot of lather, then you're not really getting clean. Not true. But, the good news is with our shampoo, a lot of organic shampoos, from decades ago, got kind of a bad rap about not producing a good lather, and that's why people didn't use them. But that has more to do with flaws in the saponification process, which is the process of converting plant oils into 100% natural soap. If you don't fully complete that process, and it's a reactive process, if you don't fully complete that, it is going to make a more oily soap than just a purely lathery. Is that a word? I don't know. So, and the trick with our organic shampoo is it loves water. So if you're not getting a good lather with our shampoo, you're using way too much shampoo and not enough water in order to activate it to get the suds up for you. And you get all of that sulfate free. You don't have to resort to probably what is a petroleum based chemical that's being used in order to create that. And like I said, that's all for the human. And that kind of leads me to say something else about that. Well, we've gotten to where we get our dogs groomed for a look. We want it to have a certain look. We want it to, its coat to be smooth and shiny, or we want it to be curly and shiny, or, whatever breed you have of dog. It's important to know that dogs are individual and they have their own special genetic DNA that determines what their coat is supposed to look like. The only way that you get a consistent look to a coat is to use synthetics to do it. That is the only way that you get a look from one wash to the next wash to the next wash to the next wash. You're choosing health, or you're choosing a look over health. And we have to make that shift in the way that we think about things and be willing to forego what we want our dog to look like and just let them look like the way God created them to be. They're not meant to look like a bunch of little tiny soldiers lined up in identical uniforms.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I kind of like the rattier looking dogs anyway. That's just me, but I get it. I mean, I know, especially people that like uh, purchase dog, like, certain breeds for certain reasons. They can be kind of picky about how their dogs look. Um, yeah, was there
It's
something
just
else?
it's just education. I think most pet parents, when they realize what they're trading off, what they're trading in the health of their dog for,
Yeah,
are much more willing to say, I don't, that's not my priority. I want my dog to live a long time and not get sick. So,
yeah.
as with all things, it's just a matter of education, I think.
Yeah. There were a couple of other things that I was like, "Oh, wow," because sulfates, one of the terms that you can find on a product label sounds really natural, but isn't. It's coconut-based surfac surfactant surfactant.
Surfactant,
Yeah.
surfactant. Yeah.
Because like if I were to see the word coconut, I'd be like, "Oh, cool, right?" But
Yep. No, I mean, think about it. That's not even an ingredient. Coconut-based surfactant. That's not even an ingredient. That's a description of a combination of ingredients that have been chemically manipulated. Probably started out as a coconut and, fell off a palm tree somewhere and got a coconut. Okay, well let's see how fast we can turn it into a synthetic detergent is what that process is. And there's some processes for that particular the coconut based surfactant. Cocoa betaine is another one of those that you often see on a label. That just means this used to be a coconut, but it's been exposed to so many chemicals now that you couldn't call it a coconut if you wanted to. It has literally become a synthetic ingredient. Synthetic, and it's for the cleansing effect of it. I mean, that's part of what they're doing that for. So, you want your dog to be clean and you want people to think that it's coming by a natural means, but coconut based surfactant is not, is anything but natural. That is a 100% detergent based ingredient.
that is good to know because again, I see the word coconut and I'm like, "Yay."
I know.
Another thing that I found interesting, there are no regulations and they don't even have to list on the ingredient panel toxic byproducts, which apparently can be contaminated with something called one.
Yes. That's part of what happens. That's a two layer issue
Okay.
within the pet space, pet product space. Manufacturers do not have to list any of their ingredients, or they can choose to just list the ones that don't sound too offensive,
Hmm.
like coconut based surfactant. That doesn't sound too offensive. or fragrance. They don't have to list any of their ingredients. Now, fortunately, most people are smart enough nowadays, especially to realize, well, I'm not buying something if I don't know what it is. But um, when you don't have to list the ingredients, or you just list the ones that you know won't be too offensive to somebody, that's one layer of it. And then the other part of it is that there is zero regulation of that in the industry. There is no one, not the USDA, not the Department of Agriculture, not the FDA, no one is saying you can't put that in a product that you're planning on using on an animal. And it's insane that that level of discretion is so out of control. I mean, it's just unconscionable what we're putting on our animals and don't even realize it.
Wow. Well, because I was looking at a different brand of shampoo a couple weeks ago, and on their website, they only listed the active ingredients. And I'm like, okay, but where's the rest? And I never got around to contacting the company because honestly, for me, it's not worth it. Like, if you're not putting it on your website, then you're ashamed of it, and I don't need to go any further. That's just
Right.
me. But
Yeah.
I'm like, how is this? How are you only listing active ingredients on your website? And that just answered it for me because
They don't
you
have
don't have
to.
to.
They absolutely don't have to. And that's another thing that distinguishes us from all of those others. One of the requirements to be certified organic through the National Organic Program, you list all of your ingredients. And there's there's a literal paper trail from the time the olive, was a seed in the ground to the time it was harvested, to the time it was transported for manufacturing, to the manufacturing process, to the bottling process, to the time that it's in a bottle and in your hand. There's a literal paper trail for that, so that it's ensured all along the way this has not come in contact with any pesticide, it's not come in contact with any herbicide, no heavy metals, none of that is allowed in the organic program. And so only the very, very, very small handful of companies who actually go to the time and expense, because it's not the inexpensive way to go for sure, will give you the full ingredient list. They'll give it to you whether they were required to or not,
Right.
because it's the right thing to do. But if you run into a company that won't give you the full ingredients, put it back. I mean, there's no, and more to what you're talking about, the manufacturing process, they don't have to disclose that either. And so with the example that you were given with the 1,4-dioxane, that is a carcinogen, and that is a byproduct of one of the manufacturing processes of an ingredient. And if it's not cleaned, which is an additional expense that the manufacturer doesn't want to absorb to have it cleaned, then it just rides along with the rest of the product and you don't even know it's there. You have no idea it's even there. And that's okay. And they get away with
Okay.
it. They get away with it because the the regulatory bodies that aren't the National Organic Program have said people can hide behind proprietary ingredients, and they don't have to reveal all of their ingredients to you. Well, that's nonsense. I
Yeah.
mean, when you go to make a cake, you know what all the ingredients are. You may not know the specific measurements, which is the recipe,
Mhm.
but you know what's in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm getting angry.
And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know it makes me angry,
Um,
when I think about it.
there are a lot of other hidden toxins that you talk about on your website, in your blogs, but for time's sake, colors and fragrances, these are some of the things that I have really like. Obviously, I have problems with all of it, but for me, like I've just always been really, really sensitive to smell, and I cannot handle synthetic fragrances. Period.
Mm-hmm.
End of story. Like I don't care if it's a candle, a plug-in, grooming product, a human product. Like if I buy something and I bring it home and open it up and it has a smell to it, I can hardly use it. The only things that I can really use are natural. So if I buy like an essential oil. I can
Mhm.
handle the like a real essential oil like Animalio,
Mhm.
not an MLM company essential oil. Coconut oil. It has a smell to it, but it's a very natural, like gentle kind of coconut smell. It's not one of those like cheap.
Harsh. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that you would find at like a Bath and Body Works or something. So I take so much offense to natural fragrances that are used in all kinds of products, but it's not just a matter of preference. They can actually be very harmful for us, right? And our
Yeah,
lives.
they're totally manipulated. I mean, anytime you see the word fragrance, it doesn't even have to have the word artificial in front of it. You can just assume artificial. But if you see fragrance as what is giving scent to the product, that there's unknowing how many ingredients have been combined to go into creating that one fragrance. In most cases, according to the cosmetic database that's like from 1948 and needs to be updated and hopefully will be soon. There can be as many as 3, 4, 500 different ingredients, synthetic types of ingredients or artificial ingredients that go into developing one fragrance. How can you ever figure out, what, okay, well, is number 58 okay, but not number
Yeah.
84 out of that cocktail? And it's terrible. And so we only use essential oils, and we only use the highest quality essential oils that are able to be certified organic that we can find. And we're big fans. Dr. Shelton has been our essential oil advisor since almost day one. And, whenever I have a question about anything to do with essential oils, she's our go to person for that. And, we choose essential oils that they smell good, but they also have benefits for the dog's skin and coat, or they may have benefits to being natural pest deterrents. There's a reason it's there. It's not just because, oh, that's the one that's available. Or we have extra of this, or what. It's there for a reason, and it's there for the benefit of the health of your dog, and to just continue to give them exposures to natural ingredients without needing the synthetics or the artificial ingredients at all.
Yeah, gosh. And we can talk about so many more things, but we're already approaching an hour. So I want to circle back around to the skin real quick
Okay.
because the skin, you said so many wonderful things about what our skin does. Of course, it's our meat suit. It keeps everything contained, but
I wouldn't
it
have thought of that. That's good.
I'm trying to remember Men in Black, maybe that movie is where I got that from.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, the meat suit. Um It does keep everything contained, but our skin also has, and our dog's skin also have lots of endocannabinoid receptors. And so you have recently teamed up, you have provided your formulations to CBD Dog Health, who I am a big, big fan of their products and have a combination product line that just launched over on their website that I'm really excited about because, again, you talk so much about the skin and of course the coat because that's what you're dealing with, but infusing these really, really high quality full spectrum hemp extract into what we are putting on the skin, I think is just, it just adds another layer of like, oh, this is amazing to me. So I'm
Yeah,
really excited for that.
I'm excited for it too, and I need to learn more about what the mushrooms that they use and this. I mean, I need to know more about that because I'm excited about the collaboration and doing that with them and combining, our expertise, our separate but collective expertise into making that. I mean, that's a great thing, and it's just another weapon, in the arsenal or tool in the tool belt. Not to get violent sounding, I guess tool in the tool belt's better. To just give our dogs a better chance. And it's I've used it on my dogs. I was like waiting with bated breath to get my sample from them after they actually got it bottled and everything. And I couldn't. I have two little black dogs, and Black dogs can either look really like shiny and healthy, or they can look really dull and almost a matte kind of a color. And one of my dogs she is chronically sick with inflammation, which I mean, I believe was triggered by she was way over vaccinated when she was little, and she's a rescue for me, so she wouldn't have been under my care, but I didn't have any control of that. But it's been a battle ever since, and I've got this whole barrage of things that I use for her. Our cooling peppermint tea tree shampoo is the go-to shampoo for her. I spritz her with our apple cider vinegar occasionally to just help with the yeast kind of component of that, and our peppermint spray is another good one. But we used the CBD dog shampoo, and I never saw her coat look as good as it had immediately after a bath. She was almost glowing. I don't know how a black dog glow. I mean, that's kind of what it's like. Golly, Bailey, you look really, really good. And she was so soft. And I just thought, okay, well, I know what my shampoo alone does, and it makes for that. But this is elevated now because of what they've added to it from their lineup of products. And I was like, this is going to be fantastic.
Love hearing that so much. I can't honestly, like, I have gotten my shipment since the last time I bathed my dog, so she needs another bath here soon, and I'm going to use it. And I'm really excited for it. My dog, I use their just tincture, the full spectrum hemp extract for my dog for liver support, which is a little bit unusual. I actually had a conversation with Angela because the milk thistle didn't budge her numbers at all. But then when I just stopped the milk thistle, put her on the hemp, her liver enzymes have been normal. It's been amazing. I love it. Again, a little bit of an unusual case for that, but it's been amazing. I love it. I can't live without it. I'm going to be honest. I take it. I buy the horse heel and I share it between me and my dog. So we just have our separate bottles.
Yeah.
And then I take it every night. I don't know what I would do without it. And I'm just really, really excited that it's in combination with 4Legger specifically because I just have been such a big fan of 4Legger products for so many years. And I just want to say thank you again for doing what you do, and happy that you're still here with us, of course, to continue bringing us this product, these wonderful products.
Thank you for that. I feel like I'm the steward of Henry Clay's legacy. He's the driving force behind all this, and I just get to be the human that kind of guides it. And I'm very blessed to do that. And, happy to be here. You made me think of something. There's a lot of 2-leggers that dip into their 4-legger stash of products. I mean, everything is human grade. It's probably better than the shampoo you've got in your own shower that you're using, and soap. It's what I use for my shampoo, for my body wash, for my hand soap. I've got our foamer bottles at every sink in the house. That's what I use for my hand soap. And I use, our apple cider vinegar rinse product, and everything is human grade. So feel free to share it with your 4-legger, or maybe they'll share it with you.
Ask them to share with you.
Yeah.
And a little bit goes a long way.
It really does.
Really, really does. Thank you again, Melissa, for everything that you're doing, for being here with us today. It is 4-legger, right? That's the website.
Yes.
4-legger.com. Check out the products. Sign up for the newsletter because honestly, she has been putting out such amazing content in the newsletter lately. I've been so impressed, and give it a try, guys. It's, a really, really simple swap that can make a huge difference in your pet's overall health. So thank you again, Melissa. And for everybody listening, have a fabulous rest of your week. Give your pets some extra love from me and from Melissa this week.
Yep. Thank you so much.